Good day, everyone. Tim from Timber Visions here today. So today I'm not going to do a bunch of firewood production and stuff, but I do want to talk about why I run a kinetic splitter. It is a little windy today. Hopefully having my back to it will help. But anyway, I want to discuss why I run a kinetic splitter instead of a hydraulic splitter. And a lot of it has to do with the type of wood that I produce. I'm not a huge firewood producer. I don't produce hundreds of cords of firewood, full cords of firewood per year. I don't have the time for that, and I don't have the room for it. If I had more room, I might dedicate more time, but I do not have the room. I have a fairly small lot here. It's like a fifth of an acre, right? It's tiny. And in order to have logs and split firewood and bundle wood and equipment, and still room to move around, I just have limited space here. So what I prefer to sell is bundle wood. And bundle wood kind of has to be split a little bit smaller. I can't just have, like a 4-way or a 6-way and just, one pull of the lever and it splits an entire round up into, equal size pieces and send it on down the conveyor. And, it is what it is, right? I want wood that is square. I kind of want my wood to be square-ish, on the ends, because it just makes a nicer looking and easier to make bundle. And the majority of the wood that I sell, or that I want to sell, is bundle wood. So, of course, not everything on this round is going to be a piece of bundle wood, because they're round, So obviously, some of it's not going to be square. But I do kind of square it up and send the square pieces down the conveyor. Or even if there's barkless pieces, bark falls off, I'll send that. If it's a little bit round on one side, it's not that big of a deal. I can still put it in a bundle, but I don't want bark on there, and I want it mostly square. So that is why this type of splitter is the best for what I produce and what I sell. If you're selling bulk, you don't sell any bundles, this is not the splitter for you. I can guarantee you that. It's not the fastest at taking a round and breaking it down into pieces. It is the fastest cycle time though. But each cycle, you're gonna split one piece of wood into 2 pieces of wood. You're not gonna split it into 4 pieces of wood like you can a hydraulic splitter. So that is the downside of a kinetic. But the cycle time on this is faster than any hydraulic splitter out there. I don't care what the price of it is. The cycle time of this, and when I say cycle time, I mean the ram comes out and goes back in, is literally like 2 seconds. That's all it takes for this to come all the way out and then go back. And it's just because of the design of a kinetic splitter. I'm going to take the cover off of this, and we're going to look in the inside of here and kind of explain this. Okay, so this is what it looks like underneath that cover. With this particular model, I have 2 90-pound flywheels, one on each side, and the belt drives on just this one side. So your motor runs and it spins these heavy flywheels. And it takes a little bit to spin those. That's quite a bit of mass, right? And when I pull up on the handle, this handle sits down here like this. So I just have to pull up on it, and then that lifts this up. And let me bring you in closer so you can see this. Okay, so here's that handle shaft. When I lift up on this handle, it pushes these rollers down right here. So these rollers push down on that rack. okay? So this rack on the underside has teeth that go to a pinion underneath there, and that pushes this out quickly. And it does a full extension and then retracts back because of the springs on here. There's springs underneath here, and those springs pull it back. Let me get over here where there's some good light. So right here is a roller that rides on top of the I-beam. And that's an important one. You always want it to be rolling. So that is the downside of this design, is if that thing does not roll and it starts sticking, then it causes drag and your springs don't pull it back efficiently. So sometimes it'll just come back to like here and it won't go all the way because it's causing drag. So that just needs to be lubed. You know, I try to lube it up every time that I run this, and that takes care of it. And then on here, you see this crap here? That also causes drag. So I have a flat bar that sits over here in the corner of the leg, and I scrape that off periodically. I wouldn't say I scrape it in the middle of a session unless it's a fairly large session and the wood is very wet. It seems like the sappier the wood, the more you have crap building up there. But otherwise, the inertia from these two flywheels is what drives that thing out. And you have a lot of kinetic energy. That's why they call it a kinetic splitter. You have a lot of kinetic energy built up in two 90-pound flywheels, 180 pounds of energy spinning. And when you lift this up and it engages that rack and pinion, it pushes this out quite rapidly. And then it goes right back. So it is super fast. And especially if you have the RPMs turned all the way up on your Honda engine, which I generally don't, just because I don't need it that fast. I'm just one person here. So it comes out, splits quick, it goes back, and then I'm moving the pieces. Comes out, splits it quick, and slams back. You know, it's very efficient, very fast. You don't get that with a hydraulic splitter. I don't care how high dollar it is and how quote unquote fast they say it is. All right, I want to be very clear here, folks. I'm not saying that if you have a hydraulic splitter, your splitter is a piece of junk and there's no use for it, because there is. There's a use for every style of splitter out there. You know, there's some that are cheaper and a guy can get into them a lot easier. There's some that are more expensive and they're hydraulic and their cycle time is pretty good, but it's still a hydraulic splitter. So I've watched so many videos on splitting firewood. It's ridiculous. A lot of different types. For example, I watch In the Woodyard with Chris, right? And he has the Easton-made Ultra, which is pretty close to the same price as this, right? It's a little bit more, you know, maybe $500 to $1,000 more than a super split. But it is hydraulic, and it does have a fast cycle time. Don't get me wrong, for a hydraulic splitter, that thing gets out there and gets back in a hurry, you know, and it has the auto return. So you don't have to worry about, you know, holding it back. But it's still hydraulic. So say, for example, you know, people say, oh, well, that Kinetic, you know, can't get through knots. And they can, because on a super split, the wedge is basically like a knife. It is so sharp, so narrow, that you will literally cut right through knots. You know, see if I can find an example here. All right, so these aren't really good examples. Everything that I recently splitted was, you know, pretty small stuff. But you can see right here, this was a knot, and it just slices through it. You know, it's not a huge knot, but it's still it sliced right through it. You know, it's the same thing here. You can see it just slices it. So that's a terrible example, I know. But my point is, it doesn't really slow down the ram when it pushes through. But when you have a hydraulic splitter, yes, when there's no load, it cycles as fast as this Kinetic does. But when there's a load on it, you hit a hard spot, and it will, especially if you're doing, you know, a box wedge or a 12-way or something like that, right? Where you're splitting a whole bunch of pieces all at the same time. It exaggerates the heck out of it. You know, that 34D or whatever, that diesel powered one with the, that they put the box wedge on. It's an impressive splitter. Don't get me wrong, it is impressive. And it kind of puts out the wood that I'm after once you get away from the edges, but it does not make what I want straight off the conveyor. You know what I'm saying? When I use this, I can sort as I go. Stuff that's bundle, I send one way. Stuff that's bulk, I send another way, because I'm right here doing it, okay? So that's why it works better for me. Would it be nice to split it all and you don't have to worry about it after that? It just goes up the conveyor? Sure, but that's not the product I'm after. That's not what I want to sell. I don't want to sell just bulk wood. That's not my market here. So, but anyways, with the hydraulics, once it starts having something that, you know, some work, it will slow down that stroke. You see it all the time. I see it in all those videos with the hydraulic splitters. It'll come out and start hitting the wood, and then it'll, you know, and it's slow. Meanwhile, that clock is ticking. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it gets there, backs up, pulls the piece back for you automatically. You know, it's got a little pullback bar, and then it goes again, and it comes out fast, and then it gets to the point where the splitter is, and it slows way down until it pushes it through. That's how it's designed to be. That's a fact of hydraulic splitters. No way around it. It can only push so fast. Where this has all that energy built up in those two flywheels, and it just comes out and it pushes against it. Now, I don't set my piece of wood back here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to waste this area back here. I'm going to have it straight up against the wedge. This thing comes out like a hammer, strikes that, pushes it through, and now I have two pieces. Set one off to the side, and then I can work with the other one. Knock another little hunk off, knock another little hunk off, knock another. And I'm going to do a demonstration here in a second, but I want to explain why this is more advantageous to me than any hydraulic splitter that's on the market. I can make the wood that I want every time I split, and I know it's going to be the wood that I want because I'm making it, you know. It's just the nature of the beast. Yes, I have to have it come out and go back several times to do one piece of wood, right? As that's going, as that's happening, I can sort out, send a bundle wood down that way, throw the bulk wood this way, right? If I'm just sitting there running the lever, whatever comes out, comes out. I could do that, and some of that would be bundle grade, but then as I go through that wood, I'm gonna have to sort it, bundle and, you know, bulk wood. Still gonna take time then, where here I just do it as I'm splitting, and I can send it in the directions I want. Once the wood's in its destination, I never have to touch it again. It's, you know, it's in my bags or in an IBC tote, and that's where it stays till I do something with it to sell it. So that is why a Kinetic splitter, if you're doing bundle wood, even if you're like buying bulk wood from somebody who has a processor and you want to split it down to make bundle wood, this is a splitter to get. It can still do big pieces. but I don't like to get too much bigger than this. If it's much bigger than this, I will use my tractor attached splitter to split it down into chunks this size, right? And then split from there. I could put a huge one on here, but it's very cumbersome, just like any other horizontal splitter like this. Now, if you have an axis that goes up and down, then it's kind of like this, and they're pretty fast, but I still don't think they're as fast as this. I don't think so. If the knife on this, or wedge or whatever, was a little bit taller, you know, about the same length, and I've heard guys, you know, extending these, I think you could, it would be just as good as an axis, except that you're not working vertically, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm rambling on. I'm going to do a demonstration here of the splitter running. We're going to just do a little splitting here. I'm not even going to start the conveyor. I'm just going to throw the bundle wood onto the conveyor, and then I'll run it up after I'm done. But stick with me and we'll do this. This machine is not run. Turn it on, put the choke on. Get that stuff out from behind me. One pull. Fully choked. Get her warmed up. Back right through. So there you have it. I, just did a couple rounds so you can kind of see how fast it goes. And that wasn't even full RPMs. That's about as fast as I like to run it. It saves on fuel and it's fast enough for what I need it to do. And, it's just fast. And now everything that went that way is bundle wood. Everything that I threw, off to the side of the camera or behind the camera, that's all bulk wood. And it's quite fast. I've timed myself I could fill, you know, just splitting, not sorting, just splitting everything. I can fill an entire 3rd quart bag in about 20 minutes. So you take that times 3, that's a quart an hour. And, you know, one guy. If you have 2 people here, it can go a little bit faster because you can keep the logs up here in front of you, and also help sort, hold things back, put it in front of you. But you could see in there, I kind of held that piece. It cut right through them knots. Yes, it slows down a little bit as it comes through, but it still just slices right through the knots. It's still a pretty fast cycle compared to what you see hydraulic splitters do. I'm not dogging on hydraulic splitters at all. It's not the point of this video. I'm not saying a Kinetic is better than a hydraulic. What I'm saying is, for my application, this is the way to go. It's just a better splitter style for what I do, the firewood that I make. If you're making, you know, firewood for outdoor wood boiler, this would not be the one for you. You're gonna want something that, you know, knocks it in half or into 4 pieces and sends it on down the conveyor. The Super Split Kinetic splitter, it is one of the best moves for my business I've ever had. It's up there. I don't know if it's #1, but it's up there a ways. After I got this, I started cranking out some wood pretty fast. But I went from a big box store hydraulic splitter to this, so that's like a night and day difference. You know, I didn't go from Easton Made Ultra to this. You know, and I think that's pretty darn close. It's pretty darn close. They're a good splitter, but these here, made in the U.S., they've been making these since the 1970s. The design has pretty much stayed the same. They've just, you know, gone with bigger motors and heavier flywheels, and they have a plastic cover instead of a metal, you know, sheet metal one like they did back in the day. But all in all, it's all the same. And this is like carbon fiber or something. I don't know. This used to be metal, but all in all, they're pretty much the same design. And this wedge, you know, as sharp as it is, I think is the key, because there's been some Chinese knockoffs of these, and they always have wider beveled 2 bevels on a, you know, and thicker and taller, and they don't have the teeth right either. I've seen some of those and they look dangerous because it comes flying out of there so fast, and you have a wedge that's way too thick for that velocity, and, you know, piece of wood go flying and stuff. I think it was Hard Working Man. He did a video on one of those Kinetics, and I was like, that is nothing like a Super Split. You know, it did look dangerous. I think he put a freaking hockey mask on, or freaking, you know, a catcher's mask or something like that, because he wanted to protect his face. And I'll tell you, that thing was dangerous looking. So beware. These do cost a little bit of money, you know. I mean, they're, like I said, just slightly cheaper than an Easton Made Ultra. So especially if you get the bigger table like I have. But they're pretty good. And I think when I bought mine, it was like I had to wait 6 weeks for it to be delivered, something like that. Because, you know, they sell a lot of these. I don't know if they wait until the order to build it, or if they're just behind enough. But anyway, I did have to wait like 6 weeks, I think, to get mine. So, but that was, you know, post-COVID. Everything was pretty bad back then. But I'm sure on the website I'll tell you how long a wait you'll have if you do order one. I'm not affiliated with Super Split. They don't even know who I am. They have no idea who I am. I don't even know if they've ever commented on one of my videos where I featured their product. I don't think so. So I'm not paid by Super Split to say anything. I've had this splitter for, it'll be 3 years this summer, I think. And man, this thing is a firewood producer. It really helped out my business. So I just want to share that. There are other Kinetics out there. Just watch for the features that I showed in this one and make sure that they have those. You know, Honda motor's pretty nice too. But anyway, I do want to thank you for stopping in and watching this video. Until next time, be safe, brothers and sisters.